It's time to talk about the Raiders. That's right, the Raiders. And oh boy, did they have fun in 2022, huh? Coming off of the 2021 season where they slid into the playoffs under interim head coach Rick Bisaccia. You go into 2022, they hire Josh McDaniels, hire a new general manager, and they make the big trade for Davante Adams, and you're like, okay, you know, the Raiders are at least trying to go for it looks like, and we'll see how this works. Like, is Josh McDaniels going to do better with a second chance at being a head coach? And I mean, what else can you really say, right? They got off to an 0-3 start last year. They kept finding ways to lose, finished 6-11, have Raiders fans already talking about, you know, McDaniels needs to go, having them looking ahead in some cases, and understandably so, to Caleb Williams in the 2024 NFL Draft. That's where we're at right now, right? But understandably so, because 2022 certainly had to be a bit of a disappointment. Like, if you're going to go 6-11, you might as well kept Bisaccia. Really. Like, you might as well have. Like, it looks really bad right now to sit there and say, oh, we had to get rid of the interim guy who actually turned the team around after Gruden was fired and led them to the playoffs, just so that way Josh McDaniels come in and suck dick. Well, that's what they did. So 2023, the pressure has to be on. And it gets really interesting, right, with what transpired late in the season and then in the offseason with the ultimate transition and getting rid of Derek Carr. Derek Carr had been the face of the franchise for 9 seasons. And I know it is entirely and inherently unfair to lay a lot of the problems over the past decade with the Raiders franchise at the lap and feet of Derek Carr. It's certainly not fair. But here's the reality. I will defend the Raiders in their decision in this respect. Is they've had Derek Carr for 9 years. They ain't really win shit with him. They could just as easily not win shit without him, save themselves a bunch of money against the cap, in the pursuit of trying to find a quarterback that could be the long-term answer and the elite guy that Derek Carr was never, ever, ever going to be. Doesn't mean it has to be hate on Derek Carr. Like, he's a solid NFL starting quarterback, but he's not a super stud, he's not elite, and he's not a guy that you're going to win a championship with because of. It's just not. So the Raiders reached that point, like, it's time to do something else, which is really all the more ridiculous to me that they would go out in free agency and they would guarantee $30+ million to Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, I understand the Josh McDaniels connection, but the fuck is that? No, that's not how any of this should be done. If you were going to do that, then just keep goddamn Derek Carr. Like, it is really inherently, unbelievably stupid. And it'd be one thing if you're breaking in Jimmy Garoppolo because you had a young quarterback and you said, hey, we want Garoppolo to work with the young quarterback. We want him to back up the young quarterback. No, they're going into the season with Garoppolo starting. That's stupid. And even the McDaniels connection, when's the last time they worked together? Was it like 2016, 2017? What the fuck's going on here? Just dumb. Just dumb. But this was a team outside of Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, that was a big deal, right? They were pretty busy in free agency, signed a number of players. Jacoby Myers, added him to the wide receiving group. You have Marcus Epps and Brandon Faison in the secondary. Robert Spillane, he's going to be kind of that interior, I guess you would say, like run stuffer thumper in that linebacking core. Austin Hooper. So this team was certainly active in free agency, trying to remake the roster, trying to plug in some holes. Surprisingly, they kept Davante Adams. Maybe he wanted to be there? I don't know. Fair question to ask. In terms of the draft, Tyree Wilson in round 1, like, this is a team that needs a big-time edge rusher, a big-time pass rusher opposite Max Crosby, and they've got to hope that Wilson can develop into that guy. He's raw, but the upside is there. Michael Mayer in round 2, the tight end from Notre Dame. And you talk about a team that traded away Darren Waller, got a third-round pick in return, signed Austin Hooper as kind of like a stopgap, but it'd be nice for them to have Michael Mayer be the long-term guy. And then you got guys like Byron Young, another potential young edge rusher to bring in there. So, and I look at this Raiders team right now, in terms of what I like about them, I'll start with the receiving core. Like, this is a really good group. You've got Davante Adams, an elite NFL wide receiver. Hunter Renfrow, assuming he's going to be there, assuming he's healthy. Like, he's an elite slot option at the NFL. I do believe that. Jacoby Myers is a nice, solid add. Austin Hooper's there. If Michael Mayer gives you anything in the passing game. Like, it's not a bad receiving core. And then you go talking about skill players. Like, Oakland. Las Vegas. It's still hard, right, to not call them the Oakland Raiders. But the Las Vegas Raiders. Their skill position guys on offense, not damn bad. Because you've got Josh Jacobs, who had over 2,000 all-purpose yards last year. We'll see if he's going to be the long-term back or not, but he had a monster year, so you'd have to assume like that's where the Raiders are dealing from a position of strength. And then defensively, you've got Max Crosby. He's kind of like your building block. He had 12.5 sacks last year. He's the one consistent, big-time pass rusher that you have, one big-time difference maker that you have on a defense that really, really, really needs it. And even with that, there's a similar problem with Khalil Mack they had for several years. Khalil Mack was a stud. The rest of the defense around him still absolutely sucked cock, so it didn't fucking matter. And I look at this Raiders team, and frankly, I see lots of questions, right? The pass rush. Even with Max Crosby having 12.5 sacks, they were still 30th in the league in sacks last year. They still can't get to opposing quarterbacks. It's been a problem for a number of years, and that problem persists. I look at the quarterback spot, like, why the fuck get rid of Derek Carr just to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo? It's like that Spider-Man meme, right? Where you've got one Spider-Man's pointing at the other Spider-Man. They're the same fucking guy, except Derek Carr actually stays healthy. I don't fucking get it. And then if Jimmy Garoppolo goes down, you're going to turn to Aiden O'Connell? Good luck with that one. And then the biggest question mark to me is Josh McDaniels. He did nothing in his first year as head coach of the Raiders to beat the allegations that he's in over his skis and way over his head as a head coach and that he's an idiot in that role. He did absolutely nothing to defeat those allegations at all. So, yeah, there you go. That's the biggest question mark to me at all. If we're basing it off of what I saw last year, there's not a lot of reason for optimism or hope, especially in a division that should be pretty tough. In terms of stretches of schedule that are going to matter for the Raiders this year, I look at the first 4 games. They're at Denver, they're at Buffalo, they host Pittsburgh, and then they go to LA to play the Chargers. It is not entirely inconceivable that this Raiders team is 0-4 after 4 games. That is certainly possible. If they want to have any chance at all being in the wild card mix this year, they have to at least win those first 2 games, as unlikely on paper right now as that may seem. But it's very likely to me, I think it's more likely that they would go 0-4 in that stretch than they would go 2-2. And if they go 0-4 to start the season, it's time to start turning up the heat on Josh McDaniels' seat. And then a little bit later on in the year, weeks 10 through 12, another kind of brutal stretch. They've got to host the Jets, they got to go to Miami, and then they host the Chiefs. Sorry, Raiders fans, but I don't see a lot of reason for optimism. And you know what? No, I take that back. I'm not sorry, because there are some of you that are very smart that know, hey, I don't want the Raiders to be good this year. I want them to suck because I've got a vision of what the future could be. And it's Caleb Williams or one of these other quarterbacks and what could be stacking up to be a really damn good 2024 draft QB class. I'd rather have one of those guys, because until we get one of those guys, none of this shit's going to matter. And you know what? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I think this is a 4-win team. I mean that. I'm trying to help you along, Raiders fans. I'm trying to help you along. I think this team is not good. I don't like the way they're built. Don't have any faith or confidence in Josh McDaniels as a head coach. So we'll see what happens when the season starts, but I don't think there's a lot of reason for optimism with this group personally.